Hello and welcome. This is Kenzi Rose on the Live Young podcast. And I met Kenzi through Instagram, and something about her energy just kind of sucked me in. And I wanted to learn more. And you're going to learn more about how she sort of alchemizes her energetic connection to the people she works with, and even through, social media to help people create more abundance in their life. And so I love where we started, because you in a vulnerable way I didn't know that we could still go through these like death portals and this transmission and this shedding and this grief. And that word to me, where we are right now, like the amount of grief that I'm feeling and moving through, and is I didn't know similar that I could say this. Like, again, it's more than I ever thought that I thought I was done doing that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
We got
what
to the
I,
rainbow, right? Oh,
yeah. And what
I,
I keep hearing then is like surrender. It's not up to you. It's just not. You can resist it or you can just surrender to it.
yeah. And like I've resisted it for 30 years, right? And that was fucking hard.
Yeah.
And not doing that anymore. No.
Yeah, I think that's like the goal is to not do that. Like even yesterday, Halloween, and I think it was the last day of eclipse season, not sure, but like the amount that I felt like I was releasing from my whole body of like this dense darkness, if you will, this grief from like my fascia, my organs, like it was like so intense. It like kept coming out, and I was just like, fuck.
I
Like,
felt that like the exact same way you just described that.
yeah.
Literally. Just like I was just like sobbing, and it was like my body was like contracting in, and it was like it was just like physical pain, and I just could just stand there and just cry and just like hold my heart. And I just knew, like, I was like my body was closing in, and it's just like dying, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, and then a couple minutes later it's like, okay. But in the moment it's like feels like this is never going to pass,
Yeah.
right?
And it's so interesting. So, if you're listening, a bit about Kenzi, I want you to tell us about your journey. But I love where you are, just where we're entering into this, because you're someone who's done so much work to get where she is, right? And like you're a mom, you're a manifester, you help people create more abundance in their lives, like through everything, but particularly like through a money mindset, I would say, which is why I just have such reverence for you, especially as a woman, because money is such a strange word, experience, energy. But once you, I think, can harness the way that you relate to it, the way you relate to it changes. And it's not a simple shift, but I think it's a shift that really opens up if you can allow it to. So with that said, for you to be so open to like this death portal and grief and all of this, like from where you are, is so honest. And in that, like, who are you? Tell us who you are, what you do, and lessen like your bio, and just like, who are you today?
Yeah. So I love how we started too, just because that is something so I'm in this speaker academy. I'm a speaker now, and it is bringing up so much, right? Because, I have done so much work, and I'm a Virgo, and there's this part of me that I notice that comes online, and she just wants to teach the lesson only, right? She just wants to show the lesson. Oh, we perfected it. Now we're here. We figured it out, right? But in being a speaker, you have to tell the emotional journey, right? Of how you got to the lesson. And so I love that we started out vulnerably, because the story in my mind, or the pattern that I am noticing in myself as of lately, is this desire to avoid like emotional connection or intimacy, and just skip straight to the good part, right? Straight skip to the good stuff. And but it's my superpower is in that vulnerability. It's in that emotional connection, right? And it's sharing that. So it's who I am today is I'm this speaker, and I'm one thing that's so fun about this interview is that I'm completely unplanned. Usually I come in with a plan and I'm like, I know what I'm going to say, but I'm learning that my superpower is in my body. It's not in my mind. My mind knows all the things, right? We've studied, we've read every single book. We know all the things, right? But the wisdom is actually in the body, which comes from my intuition, which is my channel, right?
Mm.
And so that's what I'm bringing here today.
I love that. And it's funny that you mentioned you skip over to the good part. And I'm the exact opposite. Like
Mm.
I live in the vulnerable, in the dark, in the mess. And that's how my superpower is connected. Like I see it and it's almost like I magnetize it. And I'm not sure if this is related, but I love that you're like abundance and like the good part and the good juju. And like you go there. To me, I go to the mess because that's where I believe the magic is. And you have to pull it out, yes, but I want to know everything about it. Like I
Yeah.
want to see you, feel you, hold you in the guttural and like that. And I don't know why that is, except that like I've had to hold myself in so much mess.
Yeah.
And that's where I relate most, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So
And
for
so,
me, I wish I could skip over it. Like, yeah, I'm writing a book and I'm a speaker, but the book that I wrote is the story. And so I get caught up in like, I'm not my story, but I need to tell my story so that I can get to the good part thing. But like, wouldn't it be just great if I wrote a self-help book and skipped over the story and just told the lessons? And it's like, no, because I don't like to me, I don't relate to that because it just doesn't, it feels too manufactured.
yeah, if you think of any movie that we all love, there is the hero's journey,
Yeah.
right? That's what makes it good because then you're rooting for that character, right? You're like, you got this, you can do it. But if everything was perfect, nobody likes that girl, right?
Mm.
Everyone's like, she's boring.
Right. We don't relate to her.
Yeah,
Well,
unrelated.
so how did you get here? So like your story. So you're a
Yeah.
coach, you're a writer, you're a speaker, but who were you before that?
Yeah. So before that, I was where I started at when I was in my 20s. I became a single mom when I was 21 and was always a single mom. And I remember when I became pregnant, it was like this story that my mother told me that like my life was going to be really hard now. Up until then, my life had been really easy and simple. And then, but once I was a single mother, then the story was my life was going to get really hard now. And so then I became a nurse. I was like, well, okay, then, I got to figure out how to make money. I got to provide for this kid. I got to be a mom. And so I was like, someone had told me, if you go to nursing, then you're going to get rich. That was the story. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to nursing and because that's how I'm going to make the most money. I don't know who told me this story. It's not the truth. And so I go into nursing, and I did it. I was the single mom. I got straight A. Like I did so good. I was so good at being a student. I'm so good at using my mind. I'm so smart, right? I was like, I got this. I did it. I got the job I wanted, got the dream job. I was like this NICU nurse. And then all of a sudden it was like, as soon as I was done with school, all of a sudden I had space to realize and feel everything that I had blocked out for all of those years and abusive relationships and just different things that I had just blocked out and said, you know what, I have to go be a mom and I have to make money and I have to provide for my child. And so then when I had space, it all started flooding out. And at this time, I started finding psychedelics and I started working with like mushrooms and different plant medicines that was bringing out this trauma. And I started this was like the beginning of becoming this master of emotions, because when it all started flooding out, it was so chaotic, right? It was a mess. It was full of darkness. There was like depression, anxiety, like suicidality, like so many things coming out. And it was, really and at this time, that's when I started finding microdosing it just felt like out of touch. Like life felt like it was all caving in. And I remember, so I found microdosing, I found different things. And I remember I lived in my mother's basement. And I remember sitting there and so depressed, so anxious, so sad. And I was watching Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he said something to the degree of, you have a choice. You always have a choice. And I had heard that 100 times before, right? But in that moment, sitting there depressed on my bed, I sat up and I was like, he's right. I'm choosing every single part of this experience right now that I'm having. And I don't want to choose this anymore. And so it was in that moment when I was like, okay, then what do we want? What do we want to do? And so that's when I started learning about manifestation. I started reading different books about manifestation. Like, okay, I don't know what I want, right? And so maybe if I can lean into these other people who look like they're having a good life, I know I want to have a good life. And so maybe if I can like so I started like reading Gabby Bernstein and different people who I saw were happy. And I was like, wow, she seems powerful and I want to be more like her. And so I started, reading her books, watching her, finding like Brene Brown or different Jen Sincero, and just reading their books and becoming like enthralled in their world. Like, okay, how do I be more like her? What do I like about her? Oh, I like that she's confident. I like that she's authentic. I like that she shares her truth. I like that she's funny. I like that she's smart. I like that people like her, and okay, then I started learning like all these things that I see in her are only because that is me too. And so then it was like, okay, it became like this thing that I became a student of my own behavior. And I started watching these people who I looked up to and watching their behavior, literally watching them and writing down, what do I like about what she's doing? Why am I so enthralled with this person? And writing that down and being like, okay, where in my life can I show up this way? How can I show up this way? And literally started building this character, right? Saying, okay, I'm actually going to be this. This is who I thought I was. Because the thing is one of the greatest questions I ever asked myself was, when did you decide that you weren't lovable anymore? Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's about there's a moment in time, right? Probably many of them, but a moment in all of our lives when something happened that told us that we weren't lovable and that we weren't worthy and that we didn't have value, and that we started to believe that. And we started to take on that identity of, I'm not good enough. I'm not valuable. I'm not lovable. I can't have what I want. And we start walking down that path. And then we say, eventually, and it becomes an illusion. We start to believe that we are that person. And eventually, when you can become aware and you can say, oh, actually, I get to choose, right? Back to Joe Dispenza. I get to choose who I am. And I'm going to choose this. And I'm going to start to show up that way. And so that's what I did. And so from a business sense, I just went cold turkey and I just quit nursing and I was like, I'm going all in. And that was the craziest thing to do. And I think that's probably why I teach money now, is because all of a sudden there was no money and we were doing this business, right? We were doing it. And, there was a point where I got where it was like a couple years ago where I didn't have a home because my mother kicked me out of her basement. I didn't have a home. I didn't have money. And I left this 7-year relationship that I was in. It was like rock bottom. And that was the point where, so I had learned all this stuff up until that point, but I hadn't embodied it, right? Learning it, it's in my mind. Mm-hmm. And then this was the point where the universe stripped everything from me and was like, either you're going to do it or you're not. And so, I don't believe that we all have to get to that point of rock bottom, but a lot of times we do, because that's the thing that finally our pain our desire for change is greater than the comfort of staying stuck in our pain, right? When we're at rock bottom, that's what it was for me. We don't have to get there. We can choose at any moment to shift. But for me, it was that point. And then from there, I was like back at that point in nursing school where it was like, well, now I have a kid. Now I have to provide for my kid. Like, what do I do? Right. And back there, and then it starts bringing up that trauma again. Right. And then it's like, oh, and then it's remembering all the things we learned. Actually, we're not back there being 20 years old. We're here being 28. We figured things out. We're smart. We know how to do this. We can move forward. Right. And it's choosing every moment, every single day to show up. And so for me, it's like, and that's why I, talk about money in the sense that I do, is because that's been a huge part of my empowerment.
So how did you make that? I mean, granted, you believe these things in your mind, you pulled them into your body, you created this energetic connection from head to heart to probably gut, and to sort of become integrated in the beliefs that you almost had to step into, otherwise you would have nothing. The one question I know everyone asks is, well, like, how? So like, how did you make money? What did you do? How did you pull yourself out of it? Like, tell us.
So something told me, I found human design, right? And human design told me that I'm this manifester. So when I didn't know a lot, I was like, oh, I am the queen of manifestation. Obviously, there's only like 4% of people out there like me. I am meant to teach manifestation. And so I decided that. And I was like, okay, that's what we're going to teach, but we don't even know anything about manifestation yet. So maybe we should learn a few things first. So then it was like, okay, well, so that was like the vision, right? Okay, we're going to be a manifestation coach. Then I was like, okay, I quit nursing. What do I know? How could I help somebody? I've been a nurse for the last 5 years. I've been in mental health. I've been in the NICU. I've been in all different places. What could I do? So I was like, well, and I learned psychedelics. I was this ketamine nurse. I've been, so that's where I went. And I said, okay, I know how to microdose. I could I know how to actually help people get off antidepressants and heal their depression through microdosing, because I did that. So maybe I'll teach that. And so I started getting online, and I got on my Instagram. I didn't have any followers. I got on, and I started finding different people, and I just started posting on my story, like at the time, because I didn't know my value. I didn't know my worth, but I knew that I was cool. I knew that people would want to be my friend. That's what I believed. And so I said, well, maybe they want to pay me to be my friend. Like, that would be cool. That was like the first thought. Right. And then I could teach them how to microdose, and I could help them heal and be happier, because that's where I was at. Right. I wasn't depressed anymore. I'd healed that. So here we are. And so then I started getting online, and I started talking about that in my story. Hey, do you want to be happier? Do you want to learn how to be happier through these little tiny mushrooms? And people were like, yeah, tell me more. And so then I was like, okay, you want to get on a call with me? And then it was like, literally, I would get on these calls with these people, and they'd tell me, they'd just start like telling me their stories. And I would just be like, it was so cool. Everyone was just a mirror for me. I was like, oh my gosh, me too. And then it was like so clear that, oh, I'm one step, I'm not like where I want to be, but I see that I'm one step ahead of this person right here, and I could help them just by simply like seeing them and being present for them and showing up for them. Right. And so that's why I started building my worth. Like, oh, and then people started hiring me and paying me. And in my mind, I was like, they're paying me to be their friend. I didn't even see the value that I was actually giving these people. Right. And it was just like, my mind was just thinking, we have to survive financially right now. Right. And so then all of a sudden I started getting lots of clients, and I was no longer this broke person. I was making $10,000 months, sometimes $10,000 days. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it was like the best thing ever, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, everything, like life is good. We got it figured out. Everything is great. And then all of a sudden, it's like we were talking about at the beginning, right? All of a sudden, okay, that worked for a while, right? Okay, so then, but so from that point, it was like, I was just literally just throwing shit at the wall. Like, what's going to work? How am I going to get money? Now I have all these clients on board. I have all this responsibility. I have money in the bank. Like, what my mind was telling me is now I have more responsibility. I can't handle this, is what my mind was saying. Like, we're on overload. We can't do this. It's going to fall apart, like waiting for that shoe to drop. Right. And I recognize that. I'm like, this is the same thing that I thought I healed, but now it's just back at the next level, right? Here it is again. And we can choose to go down that route, right? Of, like we talked about before, down this illusion of who we believe we are, or we can just keep going this way and we can trust. And the way that I trust is I remember that everything is always working out for me. And if that is my belief, then what are my actions? And if that is my belief, it's proof that I don't need to worry. Because the truth is that life is just a string of moments all strung together to create an infinite amount of possibilities. Infinite. So we get to drop the how. And that's where we get to let God, the universe, source, whatever you believe in between you and the vision. And that's what makes it so cool, right? Instead of being like, so for me, going from broke to 6 figures in 11 months, I would never have even imagined that in my life. But the reason that I got there was not the way that I thought I was going to get there, right? It was by me letting go and just being like, okay, I'm just going to make a decision every day to show up. I don't know what that's going to look like.
So in that, I want to give actionable steps. So are there rituals you do every day and to like surrender? Are there ways that you snap yourself out of it when you feel yourself clutching or gripping? Like when you're actually teaching this money mindset or this cultivation of abundance, is it less cultivation and more surrender? Like once you have the goal, okay, so like I'm your client, this is my goal, this is what I want. Kenzi, how do I get there? Is it putting in like a process, or is it like knowing that acknowledging what you want and recognizing that like that you are being held and supported? So how do you stay in that energetic space of like knowing, of trusting?
Yeah. Lots of things, right? I am very highly sensitive to energy. So I tend to spend a lot of time with myself. And I balance going out, but like around other people, I noticed that I'm really working on, because that energetic space that we talked about, right? When another energy comes in, it collides, right? And so it's about holding the energy. So that's a practice. And I know that that's my work. So that's one way I do it, is I spend a lot of time alone. Other things I do is like tapping. That's what I like, tap it in, and we just get going so fast. I do shaking. Like when I start thinking a lot, because the mind loves drama, right? And so it's like, I recognize that when those thoughts start coming on, which usually will start, you start noticing, it's like with awareness every day, right? So the thoughts come on, you start tapping out of it and saying a different mantra, right? Like, and so I use mantras, I use tapping, I do a lot of like energy clearing, I do a lot of like tarot. But honestly, the biggest thing that has shifted things for me is my connection with God. I grew up atheist, and so I had no connection with that. And so even then, once I started getting into like Gabby Bernstein, she really showed me the universe has your back. And but it's like and but then it was like God was still a weird word. And so there was like a block there. And so for me, it was like reconnecting with the word God. And in those moments, right, when all the thoughts are coming on and everything's saying, stop, you can't do this, or whatever it says, then that's when it's like literally you tap back into your body, right? So maybe you start tapping your chest. Maybe you start tapping here. Maybe you lick your lips. Maybe you swallow, get a drink of water, get back into your body. Because right now, like your mind is running, right? So get back into my body. That's like step number one. It's like because when we're in our mind, what the mind is going to tell you is to keep trying harder. Let's figure it out. Let's try harder. Let's try harder. So step number one is quit trying. Like come back here, get back into your body. That's step number one. And I do that by tapping, right? Just like touching your body, shaking, right? Sometimes I'm just like literally just like shaking because it's like my mind is not being nice.
Yeah, I do a lot of just touching and deep breaths to just know that like, okay, I'm here. I'm not here. I'm here, like just let the energy settle. Bringing like the breath down and like really feeling rooted or grounded or finding my feet. So I'm with you. It's like, to me, it's reminding yourself you're in your body. You're here. You're not in the past. You're not in the future. You're here. Right.
You're right now. And that will get you to stop trying. Right. And that will get you into being. Okay, here I am. I'm Kenzi. I'm right here. Right. Another thing that's helpful is like look around the room and find 5 things. Right. Like there's a plant, a pillow. Smell. Like what can you smell? Right. Tap into your senses. That's going to get your mind to stop. It's automatically going to make your mind, you can't think. Right. It's going to stop it. What can you taste? Right. Get back into your body. And then from here, you get to remember what I said, like infinite possibilities in life. So, okay, so we're here in this present moment. Everything's okay. My mind is talking, right? Saying all these things. My mind likes to, as Abraham Hicks taught me this, the mind will always go to the path of least resistance, right? Which is like common sense, right? Like from A to get to B, we go from A to B. To get to C, we go from B to C, right? That's what the mind tells us. But if we want to quantum leap and create something new, we have to get out of that linear and we have to step into like not common sense, right? So that's what I call like get delusional. So now that you're here in this moment, let's get delusional. Like let's go back to our vision. Who are we? Right? What are we doing here? Oh, we're this multi-million-dollar coach. Oh, amazing. Okay. What does she do? Oh, she shows up for her interview, even, if she's nervous. Okay, here we go. Right? It's coming back to the moment, coming back, remembering, and this is identity work, right? It's saying, again, coming back to that, I have a choice. I get to choose who I show up as. And we got to get present to do that. To get present, we get into the body. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I love it. There's one of my like oldest mentors always said, burn what doesn't serve you, remember who you are. And so I practice like fire ceremonies to literally burn something, or just literally in my mind to burn away what no longer serves me. So maybe the negative thought, or the limiting beliefs, or the past story, or the hurt, or the linear thought, and just like remember who you are at your soul. And what you're saying to me feels like, even in this place, it's like when you're tapping or you're deep breathing or you're in your body, that's when you can tap into like your highest self. Like to remember who you are, at your oldest or sometimes at your youngest, just like this innocence of just truth. Yes. Or at your oldest of like an highest self of like this deep crone wisdom. And from that place, like that's how you show up,
Yes. That's grounded. That's your genius. right? Everything else is a story that's not you.
Right.
And then when you're in your body, then you get to move before you're ready, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're always waiting for when we're ready. Back in the day, if I would have waited till I had 1,000 followers to post an offer, I would have been homeless again, probably, right? And I was not ready. I did not know that I didn't know I had any value at the time. All I knew was I was cool.
Mm.
And
Amazing. Because that's valuable.
yeah, right? Like I wear cool clothes, like I got cool style. I could help
Yeah.
I could, and it's like, and you learn, right? And I would have never in a million years thought I would be teaching people about money,
Mm.
right? 2 years ago. Never. I was like, that would be absurd. And
Yeah.
it
But
is.
it's also incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
even
Not common sense at all, right?
no. Yeah. And in that, I mean, there's so much I want to talk to you about, but we only have a few minutes left. Do you believe your design, human design, we don't have enough time to really get into it, as this manifester, did that give you an opening or a tool to manifest the abundance, or can everyone do this?
Everyone can do this. What it gave me, it doesn't matter. The thing that what it's taught me is that I start it. And it's almost a responsibility that I feel and that I'm learning to love, right?
Mm.
It's like I'm the starter, right? I show up and it's not in my smarts. That's not what it is. It's in me sharing my vulnerability that gives someone else the permission to be like, oh my gosh, this girl that I'm listening to who sounds like she's got it all together, she also feels that way. I would have not guessed that.
Mm.
And it's like, then people are, oh, maybe it's okay if I feel that way too. Right. And that's the gift. It's permission to be yourself. It's permission to be you. And yes.
Yeah. So I want you to leave last two questions. If you can leave the listeners, the viewers with just top level money manifesting tip, like your number one tip, what would it be?
My number one tip would be whatever you believe is what you will create.
Mm.
And if you want to know what you believe, pay attention to what you think.
Interesting. That's I wrote a newsletter today all about reprogramming our internal playlist, because we are our thoughts and our thoughts become our actions. And I love that, because energetically I was drawn to you because I did feel this expansiveness, this lightness. So it's really beautiful that you can hold that even through a screen. So thank you for that. The previous name of my show was called Everything You Need Is Inside, because that was the phrase I put on the doors of my fitness studios. And so I'm wondering if you can distill to you, what does that mean? Everything you need is inside. What does that mean to you?
I love that actually, because it's like the final step in manifestation the final step is taking action, but okay, the final step in quantum leaping is look inside for the answer. So often we are looking outside of us. Who can I be like? Who already did that? Who's an example? Right. And that's good to a degree, right? But at the end of the day, look inside of yourself for the opportunity, because that's where it is.
Mm.
It's inside of you. And because just think of how incredible it is that you are literally you. Like there's nobody else anywhere near who you are. And your soul literally came here to be a human of all the things at this time in humanity. And it raised its hand and said, yes, pick me.
Mm-hmm.
That is how powerful is inside of here.
Mm.
That doesn't need anything else. It's all right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
back to like Mufasa, remember who you are.
Mm.
And who you are is who you decide you are.
Back and just as you started, it's all about choice.
All about choice.
Wow. Well, if you've listened to this episode, clearly you have because you've gotten here. If this hasn't empowered you to reframe what you think, what you say, how you act, and recognize that it's happening for you, not to you, and that it's all your choice, I don't know what could. So thank you, Kenzi, for reminding us of our strength. Tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at I am Kenzi Rose. And that is where I run my business. It's where I live my life. And come find me there. I'll teach you all about how to make money, how to make passive income, how to create a business, how to be the artist and the muse and the creator of your reality. That's what we do there. And thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your gifts and give yourself the gift of finding Kenzi because her heart radiates through the screen and I love watching you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Olivia. I love this.